Mukashi Mukashi. Or, as you know in your language, once upon a time. Once upon a time, in a small Japanese village, a long time ago, there lived a farmer and his wife. They were very, very old and very, very poor. In fact, they had no money at all, not even one coin. One day, as they sat at their little table, they talked about the coming New Year's celebration. The New Year is coming, the wife told her husband. We must buy rice cakes to celebrate and have good fortune for the entire new year. But, he replied, my dear wife, we have no money. The old couple sat there looking very sad until the wife announced joyfully, I have an idea. We can sell my wedding kimono. Now in Japan, a kimono is the traditional dress for women. And the wedding kimono is the most special and most beautiful. No, absolutely not. We cannot sell such a priceless item, the man argued. But, my husband, we have no other choice. It is a sacrifice, but a sacrifice we should make. Finally, the old man reluctantly took the beautiful kimono and agreed to sell it the very next day. The next morning, he set out for the village. It was cold and snowing, but he was warmed by the reason for his journey. He and his wife would indeed have a wonderful New Year's Eve celebration. As he neared the bridge near the marketplace, he passed 6 sacred stone statues of the god Jizo. In the Buddhist religion, Jizo guides and protects travelers and shows them the right direction to go. The old man stopped and respectfully bowed to the statues. I apologize, he said softly to them. I have nothing to leave here as an offering. He looked up at the stone faces, and then he had an idea. On my return, I will bring you rice cakes. That made him feel much better, and he continued on his way. But as he crossed the bridge, he was met by a young woman going in the opposite direction. She was carrying a basket of fans, and there were tears streaming down her cheeks. Dear woman, what is wrong? The farmer asked.
Oh, I went to the market to sell my fans, but no one bought them. On New Year's Day, I will marry, and I had hoped to buy a kimono to wear on my wedding day.
The old man listened, thought, and thought. Surely the gods had sent him to help this poor woman. He looked at the kimono in his arms and saw the basket filled with fans. I will trade you my wife's wedding kimono for your fans, he told the young woman. She dried her tears and happily gave him her basket of fans and took the kimono in her arms.
It is beautiful, and when I wear it at my wedding, I will think of you and your wife.
The old man crossed the bridge, but now he began to doubt the trade he had just made. If no one bought the fans from this young woman, perhaps no one will buy them for me either. He was saddened by this thought, but his mood changed when he arrived at the center of the village. How could anyone be sad when everyone in town was so joy-filled and excited? The old farmer saw children running and waving their multicolored kites, mothers rocking and singing to their babies, musicians tuning their instruments, samurai soldiers practicing their sword fighting, workers rushing to make everything clean and ready, merchants calling out to the shoppers, buy our fish,
Buy our lanterns,
buy our cloth, and of course, the one thing everyone had to have at New Year's, buy our rice cakes. Buy our rice cakes, the most delicious of all. When the old man heard this, he remembered why he was there, and he was more determined than ever to sell his fans. He yelled as loudly as he could to make sure the shoppers could hear him above all the others. Fans for sale, beautiful fans, the most beautiful fans anyone has ever seen. Special prices, buy my fans, please, buy my fans. Countless people walked by, but no one wanted a fan. It was still snowing hard, so why would anyone want a fan in this weather? But a few moments later, he saw a very happy man walk by. The man was smiling and carrying a silver bell, ringing it and whistling a happy tune. Then the old man had another idea. If he had that bell, he could sell it. Everyone wants a bell. He offered the smiling man a trade. Excuse me, sir, would you trade a basket full of fans for your bell? The happy man smiled, took a fan, and waved it all around. It caused falling snow to fly back right into his face, and it made him chuckle. This fan makes me happy. A beautiful fan it is indeed. I accept your offer, kind sir. The old man quickly handed him the basket of fans and took the bell with confidence. He gave a huge sigh of relief. He was sure he could sell the bell, and he shouted louder than ever, "Ring in the new year, ring in the new year." But by now it was getting late, and everyone was scurrying home. There wasn't a single person in the street, except for a young man, balancing 5 hats on his head and hands. "Bamboo hats for sale! Bamboo hats for everyone!" the young man cried. "Would you like to buy a hat?" he asked the old man. The old man looked at the hats and then down at his bell and asked, "Would you trade that hat for a silver bell?" "I would gladly do so," said the young man. "In fact, I'll give you all of my hats for that bell. Nothing like a bell to ring in the new year." And so the old man traded his bell for the hats. "I don't know what I'll do with these," he said, and he hung his head low. "I was supposed to bring home rice cakes, not a bunch of hats." But then the old man began to think back on his day. He had helped a young woman to have a beautiful kimono for her wedding. He had helped a happy man to have even more happiness. And he had helped a young man to ring a bell to ring in the new year. And although he was hungry and cold, he knew his wife was waiting for him in their cozy home. And together they would celebrate the new year, even without rice cakes. He was tired, but content. Along the way home, he noticed the Jizos statues once again. "Oh my," he said. He had forgotten his promise to bring them rice cakes. I have no rice cakes," he said sadly. But then he looked at his hats. "I know," he said happily. And one by one he placed a hat upon the head of each of the Jizos statues. "This will keep the snow off of you and keep you warm." 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He now realized he was 1 hat short. "What will I do?" He covered his eyes with his hands and immediately felt the scarf upon his own head. "Aha! You, Jizo number 6, you can wear my scarf." He placed it on the 6th statue's head. "There, now you too shall be dry," he said. By the time he reached home, his entire head and his whole body were covered with snow. "My poor husband," his wife said as she opened the door and hugged him. "Where is your scarf? It is snowing and you are covered with snow." The old man hung his head and told her the whole story. When he finished, He saw that his wife was smiling. "You aren't angry with me?" he asked. "How could I be angry at such a generous man?" she asked. That night, as they sat once again at their little table, they were startled by the sound of thudding footsteps outside. "What's that?" the old woman cried in alarm. The two jumped up and raced to the window. To their amazement, they saw the 6 Jizos statues plodding slowly toward their house. When the statues reached the door, they bowed to the couple, set a large sack upon the doorstep, and then stiffly turned and thudded back to their place by the bridge. The old man rushed out the door and opened the sack. It was full of gifts, sweet things to eat, beautiful clothes to wear, beautiful jewelry, and enough gold coins to buy anything and everything they wanted. And an enormous rice cake, the biggest they had ever seen. The old man and his wife not only had everything they needed for this new year, but for every new year to come.
Wonderful! Magnifico! You've done great! Okay, now boys and girls, very carefully, take your costume off and take it back to the lady who gave it to you, okay? Quickly but carefully. You all are great. Okay. Line up right here. Did you all do this well? Thank you. I did. Okay.
Oh, this, either, what I do with this is just hang it on a hanger, so I'm going to do it. It'll be hanging like that. Okay, we can come right here. We're just going to make lines, rows, We're not going to stay like this for very long.
Just for a minute.
Just for a minute, but come up close so I can see you and you can hear me, okay? Welcome to the Cultural Activity Center, or the CAC. My name is Mrs. Millberry, and I'm going to be sharing some more things with you about the people and the country of Japan. Before we go sit on the rug, if you'll look, just don't get close, but on both sides, you see that there is a picture of a Japanese lady. She happens to be here today. If you've seen her, she looks like a little Japanese doll. And all of these kimonos and many things in the cabinets are hers. She's very graciously shared her culture with us so that you can understand more about Japan. She was born and raised in Japan, married an American man, and moved and lives in Belgium now. And so we're very thankful to her for sharing these things. If you look right in the middle here, is a letter that she received from her sister who still lives in Japan. Do you think you could read that? No. Me neither. If you remember in the video, they have several different writing systems. We just have what? Our alphabet, and that's how we read and write. But I think that is so beautiful. Okay. Walk around the bench here and just come up. we'll just start making rows. Just kind of, you know how to do that. You've done it in the gym, in the music room, and everything. There you go. Okay. I always like to start with a map because y'all are relatively young. You haven't maybe had the opportunity to go to many other countries or even maybe outside of Texas. So here is where we would be in the middle of Texas, in Central Texas, Belton and Temple. I've attached a green ribbon over here to the 4 islands of Japan. Do you think that that would take us a few hours or many hours to get there?
Many hours.
I think many hours to get there. If you were in Japan suddenly and you wanted to tell a Japanese 3rd grader about our culture, about how we live in Temple in Belton, what are some of the things that you would want them to know? Well, let's look at this list right here. We certainly would want them to know what our homes, houses look like. We would want them to know about the clothes that we wear, the food that we eat, the art that we enjoy, music, all the different kinds of music that we like to listen to, books that we like to read, buildings. We would want them to know what our churches look like, what our courthouses look like, what our stores look like. And of course, we'd have to tell them about sports. We'd want to tell them about football and soccer and baseball, but they play baseball. Did y'all see that catcher? I mean, that
He just jumped up and flipped it.
Man, I know.
He did a 360.
I was impressed with that.
He did a big
And so with that in mind,
Hands, and then you just have 4 fingers on the front. Okay? Thumb on the back side. So you're going to see your thumb. You're going to see your thumb. See? I'm looking at it. On the thumb. And then your 4 fingers right here.
That's okay.
Remember the print?
Now we